The fourth reason why buildings collapse is inadequate design. Now, this is where we start blaming the professionals, this being the structural engineer. Inadequate design is when the engineer makes assumptions that are inaccurate. An example of a building that has collapsed because of this is that building in Kino, the one that leaned over another building because of settling. What's interesting about that building is, as much as it was falling over to the next building, it didn't crumble. You get, it still remained intact. So what that tells you is that the type of concrete used was right, the class of concrete, the steel used everything was done well. So where it failed was the foundation. And it failed because the engineer miscalculated the bearing capacity of the soil. He assumed that the bearing capacity of the soil is 150 kilonewton per meter squared, whereas the actual bearing capacity of the soil was 80. This is information that I got from the National Building Inspectorate. And at this point now, this is where geotechnical surveys become important. So before you build, as much as you're working with your engineer, make sure that your engineer, and you make sure you facilitated your engineer to actually carry out a geotechnical survey. A geotechnical survey usually helps the engineer to check the bearing capacity of your soil, check the quality of soil, the type of bedrock underneath the place you intend to build. Because in Kino, what was happening there was actually loose red soil. And you see the assumptions people usually make is that wewe jenga on red soil is good. But sometimes it's not really good, you're just making an assumption. And a lot of buildings have actually, in the Kiamburu areas, especially in the Kino, there's a building, I think in 2016, around there, that the whole ground floor collapsed into the ground, just suddenly, just like that. And I think, again, at that point, you can also blame the engineer for just making assumptions. And you see the interesting thing about this building is when they sink or when they lean over, they usually don't break. So they just lean as a block. So that tells you that the design for the rest of the structures, that is the slab beams and the columns, are actually done well. So ikikuja kwa mchanga ndio makosa inafanyika. That's the fourth reason why buildings collapse in Kenya.